Yeah.
All right, it's time for my second, quite a different game from BioShock 2. This is Amnesia Rebirth. There are some similarities that we'll get into, but if you watched that last run, this is going to be a complete change of pace. We're switching it up, getting a little scary in the early mornings here. On commentary, not in person, sadly. We have Nerd Squared, if you want to introduce yourself real quick.
Yep, so I'm Nerd Squared. I run a bunch of different horror games. In fact, I run all the Amnesia games, so very excited to be on commentary for Rebirth.
Yeah, I have a tendency to talk a lot, so we might not even have time for donations. I'm sure we can fit some in. And Nerds is here to, in case I forget to mention something. Anyways, we're going to start this from a file because we do have a pretty long cutscene at the start of the run that doesn't have a lot of gameplay, and we don't want to sit through every single time we reset, so we're going to go through all of these saves and go back to the Cassandra, which is the name of the plane. We're going to hop right into it. There's a little jump scare at the beginning, and then time will start once we see the first flash past the load screen. We will have some time to explain what that cutscene was, so we're going to load in here, and time will start in 3, 2, 1, now.
Don't forget.
Get a little scary. Okay, we are waking up as Tassie, the playable character in this, and a lot has happened, not only in the cutscene, but prior to the cutscene that you sit through. The plane does go down, it crashes in the Algerian desert, and we are waking up after a very long series of events. Once it crashes, and everyone that survived the plane goes off on this expedition to find safety and a way to survive. Some stuff goes down, and Tassie makes her way back to the Cassandra and passes out to this disease that's afflicting her. You can kind of see it around the sides of the screen, and we'll get into what that story actually is. But there is even another story prior to that as well. It's quite a confusing game. I feel like a problem for the Amnesia series is you're just typically playing these to get a little scared, you're getting in a spooky mood, maybe you're streaming it, and you kind of don't get the plot points along the way. So we're going to break it down, help you out there. We're going to pick up some laudanum, throw it back to Amnesia The Dark Descent. This is the third Amnesia in the series. There's The Dark Descent, A Machine for Pigs, and Rebirth here. We have The Bunker coming out in just a few days, actually. Pretty stoked about that. But this is the second one actually developed by Frictional Games, a very cool developer. The second one was developed by the Chinese Room. But we're going to pick up a handy-dandy little journal here. Typically is how you keep track of all your quests along the way. We already know all the quests, and in fact, we skip a lot of them, so we're just going to quickly get rid of this, stand up, and make our way out of the plane. So we're going to grab this corncob-looking vest over here, and just bring this along with us. It's going to get a little crazy. We're going to pick up this lever so we can exit the plane, and out into the desert we go. So you've seen Frictional Games before, Penumbra, Amnesia, Soma even. You know they might be a little bit broken, so we're going to take this vest and immediately start flying off into the sun. One of my favorite parts about this is just seeing the shadow in the upper right-hand corner. It's so silly every time, but yeah, this game has a lot of prop flying, object hovering, whatever you want to call it. It's a very common trick amongst speedrunners, but this is thanks to a trick known as the regrab glitch, which allows us to also clip later on in the run. They did try to prevent this by making objects not have collision when you hold them. But if you put that object in your own hitbox and then grab it again, you re-grab it by letting go and grabbing it, it just has collision once again. So we can stand on it and just kind of fly over everything. We're not skipping a whole lot on this first map. It's just like a winding desert, kind of letting you get used to the game and getting you in the mood. We're just kind of taking a more direct route. And coming up, we're going to hit our first load screen, which typically there is story going on in the load screen. That's the stuff that happens prior to the plane crash, all the stuff that happens before the game even starts. And it's pretty slow. Speedrunners don't typically, especially PC speedrunners, don't typically count load times for the runs. It's known as IGT, in-game time. So this would all be counted out anyways, and because having extra dialogue play out through the load screens would be about 8 to 10 more minutes for every run that we did. We just simply change a little thing in the files, and it says, hey, we've already listened to this, we don't have to listen to it again, and lets us go on. So a little real-time save, but ultimately not a big thing for the run. And now coming up, we're going to do another little prop fly up into the air so we can get out of bounds. And one thing I love about this game is every skybox is different, especially when you go out of bounds. And this is one that I'm sure Enigma on the hosting station is going to absolutely love because it's one of my favorites, and it's, I'm sure something he can appreciate as a fan of the color purple. It is just such a nice...
You just know me so well.
I mean, just look how calm and soothing that is. We're doing all this crazy stuff, and we just have this nice purple to look at. It's always fun to see the outsides of the map, but too, you can see like light boxes and these weird geometries. But we're going to take this pillow for a little bit of a ride here. We need to clip back and bounce, skipping so much of this map. We have a couple different ways back in. We'll see what happens. And typically, we want to use the pillow to actually do that. Right here, we're going to re-grab it so it pushes us through the wall. Oh. All right, the game ate the pillow, so we do the backup strat. We stand here and fall off into the void. In their older titles, in a lot of games, you fall into the void and either like void out or die or whatever it may be. In this game, it's really cool. It actually like warps you back to the last spot you were standing. So we use a combination of just standing in the right spot and falling into the void to clip back in. This is the Traveler's Locket or Amulet. It's a passage between worlds, which is something we'll get into here in just a second. So we can open up these little rifts to a mysterious, spooky place. So if you've played the Amnesia games, you may have heard of the Other World or even like orbs and all of this fun stuff. It's a big part of the Dark Descent. It comes back in this game and they really expand upon it, which is really, really cool. In fact, we're going there right now. It's going to get really dark, and not just because of that's the Dark World. We're just going to go out into the void. Right here, instead of just taking fall damage, which won't kill us, it just makes us run slower anytime we're damaged, we can open our inventory like that, and it stops all momentum. So if we're falling a great height, we just open our inventory and close it. And now we're underneath the map. We're not playing through the level normally, obviously. So we're bypassing triggers that would spawn in like lighting and textures and all this stuff. So we just have to navigate this entire map underneath it and just looking at the geometry of things. And this is actually something that got patched out. But frictional games are well aware of the speedruns, and they're really cool in that typically if you have to down patch a game, you have to kind of do it externally on your own. And it's really annoying and can be really off-putting for runners. But Frictional actually, for many of their games that are down-patched, you can go on Steam, right-click it, go into the properties, check the beta tab, and you can actually just download the speedrun branch of the game. So it's really, really cool and awesome for them to do that. And speaking of which, I am super stoked on the bunker coming out. It was supposed to come out last week after a couple delays, and I was really upset that I was going to have to leave for SGDQ and miss that. But if you're wondering like how we find these tricks and how the route is developed, you want to see that kind of in action, when the bunker drops on the 6th, you know, assuming no more delays, that is something we will definitely be looking into on my stream. I'll be playing casually and going about breaking it for sure. We're going to climb this mountain. Look at this great skybox up there, and we need to just traverse past here. Find our way in the dark, turn left. And do 2 drops. Take another drop and turn right for this little part over here. And I can't see the amulet. We might also be in a little stuck spot. There is one problem at the end of this map, which we may have hit. Let's see. Yeah, I think there's a small little gap if you drop right in. You can't quite get out of. Okay, we are actually, unfortunately, going to have to redo this map. That is perfectly fine, because I've been talking a lot, and I want to give Enigma a chance to read your donations, so take it away.
Sure thing. We've got a $100 donation from Dashinin, who says, "Great to see you run, BloodThunder. Thanks to all tech staff, host, and Eternal Enigma, and all runners. Yes, chef." We've got $25 from Gekka, who says, "Unbelievable that it's already Friday. Only 2 more days. I don't want it to end."
Nobody does.
We've got $100 from Gears, who says, "Hello, chefs. Thank you for another wonderful GDQ. It is always an honor to draw alongside the amazing runs and enjoying the memes, the fun, and the positivity you all provide to us. Take the money for the Lunistis incentive. I followed the dev streams for a year now, and you don't want to miss out on the new levels a Grumpy Fox created for SGDQ. Stay awesome. Less than 3.
You know, it's funny that this game, or that the donation mentioned chefs, because the main characters in this game aren't actually French.
That she is indeed. Yeah, our whole goal is to try to make our way back to Paris eventually. Got a little bit more running to do, so you've got some more donations.
Oh, yes, we do. We have $50 from Slowest Poke, who says, greetings from Germany and shout out to everyone on the night shift at GDQ. I hope you remember to stay hydrated. You are doing great. Donation goes to the Lunistis Character Map Showcase. And by the way, we've had a few donations mentioning that. That'll be met at $5,000. We're currently at $2,800, so about $2,200 left on that one.
Oh, just 5,000? They can get that easy.
Oh, yeah, they sure can.
All right, time for like one more.
We have $50 from Mike Frey, who says, smiley face.
Nice. Okay, just so that doesn't happen again, we will just do like a little quick safety save here. Unfortunately, there's not a quick save, so we have to go back to the menu and come back in, but that should be no big deal. So a fun thing about the other world here, as it's kind of known, is time passes very differently, as we'll see once we get into, not quite the next map, but after we get through the little passageway here. Did we get stuck again? Let's see. Okay, that's why we do a safety save. So, because you can't quite see where you're going, you need to be able to get over this small little wall.
Yeah, as BT was saying, he missed a lot of the triggers that loads all the lighting and textures, so he effectively has to do a little bit of blind movement to find where he's going. And there's not very many visual indicators here besides some little bumps in the geometry.
Right, yeah. Even like the exit is like two small little things over here. All right, we got through that time. We can hear the aim light going off. We're getting closer. And then we're just going to magically start falling here. There's some stuff going on. And now we're kind of going in between our world, we're from the other world back to our world, and we go through these very strange dream sequences which go back and they kind of tie the two different stories together. We get a little glimpse at Tassie's apartment here, and this is a prompt clip we get to do, which is a super fun time. Kind of like we were trying to do with the pillow. We just re-grab the prop, and if we're not trying to do an object hover, the game doesn't want us to be intersecting with a prop, so it looks for the quickest way to eject us from being in the prop's collision. And typically, with the way we set it up, is just to send us through whatever we're standing against. We just clip right through the door. So this is Elise. Unfortunately, the story before the game starts is Tassie, who is married to Salim, have a child known as Elise, who does pass away due to an unknown illness, a disease, and now there's a giant baby in the sky, which is kind of weird. But who would have guessed a game called Rebirth deals with babies? And this kind of ties into what's going on here in the secondary story, the one that happens like after the events of the plane crash. Quick little flashbang. Happy photo. So as I was mentioning, time moves differently. In The Dark Descent, Daniel mentions being in a very strange place for a mere moment, just very, very quickly. But when he comes back, he's been told it's been hours. So we just spent a lot of time in the other world. And now a lot of time has passed. And it turns out Tassie is once again pregnant. And she is about to experience a whole lot of emotions very quickly. Unfortunately, we now have to go through the dark. We don't have a lot of great light sources at the moment. We have some matches. Insanity, for the most part, in the other two amnesias is not a huge thing, especially in speedruns. It doesn't really affect much. It kind of changes the atmosphere and what's going on. In this game, it does matter. It can give you a fail state, which is very, very slow. It will send you back, and you go through this long animation. It also like progresses Tassie's disease, so you see some visual stuff change as well. So we don't want sanity to be decreased, and the way that gets decreased is by being in darkness for too long. So we try our best to avoid that as much as possible. We shouldn't see anything happen there. Just traversing through.
That's what the doctor said.
Now, in this map, you are supposed to kind of come across two different things. One, you find Salim, one of the other members of the plane crash, who has succumbed to his injuries. And the other one is a lantern, which is a much better light source. We don't actually go and pick it up, because we're about to use this pot lid to just go out of bounds, we just do a simple jump over here. And it looks like we're still in bounds, but this is just kind of a gateway to the void. Just gonna hover over here. But this game will eventually just give us the lantern, which is really, really cool because, as I was mentioning, we want to stay out of the darkness whenever we can. So we're just gonna find the exit. We need to crouch down and hit the door trigger. So all of these load screens, once again, they tell the story of what happened to Elise. And over time, you see like the disease setting in and Tassie and Salim's processing of that. We get a new mechanic here, which is kind of an interesting. It goes back to sanity. Sometimes we get to check on our baby by pressing X, just a little tap there, known as the baby check. That's supposed to be a way to restore your sanity if it gets low at all. There are some points in time when the game forces you to do those baby checks, and typically it is faster just to immediately do that and then leave it instead of sitting through the whole sequence. We're gonna grab this rock and do another prop fly. This one's a little scary because not all props are made equally. This one's a little shaky, as you can see, it's just freaking out below us. The different sizes and shapes of the object do determine how safe it is to do a fly. This one's okay. As long as we don't go into that void, that little ravine there, we are perfectly fine. We're making our way to the fort, which is, I think, the coolest area of this game. I'm a big fan of the fort. It is very reminiscent of their older titles. It has a lot of physics puzzles, and we can do some more prop clipping. So there's two different areas connected by this little outside section, and we need to grab a key from the tank to open up one of the areas. And we need to eventually make a tank shell so we can blow open the gate. Because the big driving force in this, our main objective, is to get to a mountain village where a doctor resides. He is another survivor of the Cassandra plane crash, and we're just eventually trying to make our way there because he's trying to help us. So we're just going to do a whole sequence of prop clipping here. So there's the doctor trying to get in contact with us.
Got to get to that radio.
Bypass all this really, really cool stuff. This door is supposed to open once you leave. It gets broken open by a ghoul, which is one of the monsters you encounter. But instead of leaving and coming back, we're just going to grab what we need, a little bit of saltpeter, and we're out. There are three things we need to grab: saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal. We get one here, and we get two in the other section, so we can make gunpowder for the shell. And we're gonna try to stack a flashback with opening this door. If you're in a flashback sequence, you move slower and you can't really interact with stuff, so anytime you can skip those, it's the best. So that gray flash means we're in the flashback, and we let it play during this load screen. A little bit of a time save. Some really interesting parts about this room in particular. A lot of physics-based stuff, which, fan of, you want to avoid that tripwire, otherwise your sanity go down a little bit. You can just prop clip in here, but a really cool way you can do this is to break it from the inside. This is the way we leave this area typically, so we're doing killing two birds with one stone. We grab our sulfur, and now we need the charcoal as well. We do have to cook up the sulfur, and a fun little interaction here is if you put the lid back on, it actually cooks a little bit faster for whatever reason, so we do that. And the same with grinding the charcoal. If we close this little container by rubbing into it, it grinds a little bit faster. We're not really sure why, but a little bit of speed tech there. So while that's still cooking up, we're just gonna go ahead and open this door. Should be done any second now. Went a little too fast. All right, let's combine all of our ingredients, get the gunpowder, make the shell, and press it. Okay, now we can open the gate. It doesn't matter where we shoot this tank shell. It's actually not supposed to open the gate at all. The level trigger for this area to be over is climbing out of this tank once you've fired the shell. So we just hop in here real quick. Unload the previous one. Slap this bad boy in there. Fire it as soon as we can, and end the level. So we got a little bit of a waking up sequence to go through, so if you got a donation to read, now's a good time.
Sure do. We have $20 from Coolbird, who says, this horror game run is so soothing and peaceful.
It can be like that sometimes.
It sure can.
When you take all the monsters out of it, it's kind of soothing. So there's a little flash of blue light there. It is a little nod at a entity to come that has shown up to heal us. As Tassie will mention here in just a second, she felt like her ribs just broke, and suddenly they're not, which is been interesting to have happened.
I felt them break, but they're not broken now.
So we've fallen down quite a ways into what's known as the Cistern, which is a very vertical map where you're supposed to descend into darkness. It's not quite the Dark Descent, but it might as well be. We gotta get our way out of the tank. But now, while there's been some really cool skyboxes, this map has one of my least favorites. It is not quite a pretty color. So we're just gonna jump through here, and like I said, we need to descend, so we're just gonna find some nice platforms to stand on. Try to avoid fall damage when we can. If we jump off into the void this way, we can land right at the end of the map, pull this giant paperclip out of the rocks, and that will trigger us to start swimming it down into the next map, known as the Oasis. We've got a little baby check at the start, so we're just gonna hit that and then do some parkour. So some more donations, if you would.
Sure do. I have $20 from I Forgot, who says, I was gonna leave a comment, but I forgot. I have amnesia.
I see what you did there.
I'm going to try my best on this one. We have a $40 donation from Faber, who says, so glad I could make this run. BloodThunder is always a joy to watch. Shout out to my BFF Wody, who introduced me to frictional games and spent countless hours screaming with me as we were chased around by different monsters. Monkey!
Thank you so much. Very kind. Got time for like 2 more.
We have $10 from Crisis Wolf, who says, hi, SGDQ. I've loved the Amnesia series. I watched some of the speedruns and tried Amnesia Justine as my first to-learn speedrun. So quick and easy to learn. Was looking forward to your run since I saw it was announced. Good luck, BloodThunder.
Thank you so much. Justine is a very interesting one. It is a very short DLC, but it is also permadeath, so if you make a mistake, you have to start all over again. Very interesting first choice, but we're gonna do some parkour out of bounds here. We have no props to work with, so we're just gonna climb these rocks. And here soon, we're gonna see a blue entity pop up into the map right there. So that's the blue light we saw earlier. That is an astral projection of an entity known as the Empress, who is the ruler of the Otherworld. And the Oasis is also a big plot point for Tassie's story prior to us waking up after the plane wreckage. This is where the Empress shows up and takes a very strong interest in Tassie, because it turns out the Empress, despite being the ruler of the Otherworld, is also barren and wants an heir. So she sees that Tassie has an unborn child and says, hey, I can heal you. I can heal everyone that survived the plane wreck and make sure that you make it home safely, but in exchange, you have to give me your child. So the big question and like the thing frictional games kind of want you to take away from this is it's essentially the trolley problem. Would you give up your child for, you know, everyone you care about, your husband, your friends, your coworkers, or would you choose your child? We're gonna get a sick boost off these rocks. Pretty fun thing to do. Or would you save your child? And Tassie makes the choice to save her child, having just lost one not too long ago. And that's why everyone else that we've encountered so far and that we kind of run into has either died or is in the process of becoming one of the ghouls. So we're running through here. We're gonna slip back into the other world. So it's very important, like I said earlier, like if the game forces you to do one of these baby checks to do your sanity, you want to do it as soon as possible. So you see like the blue flash, check the baby and run off. Otherwise, you do have to sit through like a 15-second little dialogue there. I'm not sure why just checking it and running off works, but it's definitely something you want to do. So in this area known as the Alchemist Lab, we were introduced to these little pylon connectors that Nerd Squared can talk about as I do some clips.
Yeah, so we grab these pylons to activate doors, or basically like an electricity conductor. I'll be grabbing one of those in this next room, but I'll also be grabbing an item that I think Twitch chat might like.
A little something familiar over here. We got our hell.
Have an orb chef.
So the orb is also a very prevalent thing in the Amnesia lore. Both the Dark Descent and A Machine for Pigs have it in their lore as well. There are many orbs in the other world. They are great sources of power, which we need to grab some other sources of power. These are little batteries that we will mention in just a moment. You're supposed to use both these batteries to activate a little prototype teleporter to solve a puzzle here. We're going to keep both of these because they're going to be really useful later on. It doesn't look like a whole lot's going on in this map, just some collection and then clipping through. But this is setting up a very, very big skip later on. Actually, two very big skips later on. So it's very important we grab those. And then we have another fun dream sequence where we get a connection between, once again, the two different stories going on here. But yeah, the orbs are great sources of power. They're also guarded by what's known as the Shadow, which, once again, if you played the Dark Descent, is a like pink, gooey, fleshy, moist thing that chases you down and is always stalking you, trying to get that orb back. And now that we have an orb of our own, it kind of happens in this game as well. So we got a baby back there, we got Elise here, and we got some donations from Enigma, I'm sure.
Oh, we sure do. We have $20 from Biddy, who says, BT was the first ever speedrunner I've ever watched and is the reason I also found GDQ. Thanks for being a wonderful speedrunner and a fantastic friend. I appreciate you. Smiley face.
Thank you so much, Biddy.
We have $50 from Reich, who says, I have no idea what's going on, but I love it. Good to have you back on the big stage, BT.
Probably got time for like one more.
We have $5 from Kip, who says, roses are red, violets are blue. Thank you, GDQ, for all that you do. Hopefully the speedruns go smoothly and no controllers will be hurled. Thank you, GDQ, for making a difference in the world. Well done.
Probably one more.
Earlier there was talk of a Tears of the Kingdom tax, so we have $25 from Dancing Crab, who says, I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom each day this marathon, so here's $5 for each day so far.
Well, that's a lot of Tears of the Kingdom.
Thank you.
All right, once this loads in, we're going to be in a very interesting map for sure. One of the weirdest starts. So once again, we just came from the other world where time passes in a much different manner. So Tassie is now much more pregnant than she was before. She's going through 9 months of pregnancy in like a day's time, which I'm sure is just the least fun experience you could ever have. This is supposed to be a giant chase sequence with the Shadow we were mentioning before. But that's pretty slow, and there's a lot of just winding paths to take. We're instead going to try to take a detour out of bounds, but we need to take a prop with us because we need to be able to fly. And this one's a little bit tricky. I'm going to grab this
and if he fails this, he has to watch that entire cutscene again.
Yeah, we will definitely be making a safety save for this one. All right, we're going to clip out, and then we need to grab this plate, look away, and I'm going to use my mouse wheel. I clipped out really fast, thankfully. All right, let's do a safety save. So yeah, if you're holding an item, you can bring it closer to you or further away by using your mouse wheel. So we just grab it, scroll our mouse wheel back and forth, and that clips it through. That was really fast, really, really nice. So this is a part where sanity kind of comes into play out of bounds. Usually it doesn't, but there's a little spot we have to traverse through where it does. So thankfully we have the lantern, which we'll pull out here in just a second if I didn't already. Okay, it is out. All right, so now we're just going to go for a little bit of a fun ride. This plate likes to stick behind. So you can see all the different paths you got to take. You can run to the left. You can just see some cool textures. And keep making our way through. So you see a giant light source on our left here any second now. And while sanity, if we got hit by it here, it wouldn't necessarily kill us. If that happens, it makes you drop the prop entirely, so we just fall into the void, which is definitely not something we want. we don't want to use all of our fuel, so we're going to put the lantern away. And now we're into an area that has a much bigger teleporter. We saw like a prototype for it you're supposed to fix before, but now we see the real one. And there's a lot you need to do to get it started. So if you caught it there for just like a brief frame, sometimes on the map load, you see Tassie's feet just fly up into the sky, and I'm not sure why that happens, but it's a little weird. So here's the teleporter. You see all these different areas you can teleport to, and one thing you might have caught is you actually see the plane wreckage. So it's probably how Tassie gets back to the plane wreckage at the very beginning of the game instead of having to actually walk all the way back. So we're gonna give up the orb. I'm sorry. We gotta leave it behind. We're gonna do a fun little jump up this slope. Saves like a second of climbing a ladder. And go into the next area. The next area is on a timer. And once that timer's up, the doctor's gonna call us on a very ancient cell phone. And that's much like a flashback. We're gonna walk slow, we can't jump, we can't interact with stuff, so we don't want to be in the middle of fixing up the machine when that happens. And a fun thing you can do, instead of actually interacting with these wheels to turn them, is you can use this sandbag to just turn them a little bit faster. Because there's no cap on that speed. Solve this puzzle real quick. Now we're gonna try to get back to the start. We will probably get the phone call, I'm sure. Let's see. Yeah. So we can actually cancel this out by just falling into the void real quick. Taking some damage.
Yes, me? Yes. Yes, hello, I'm here. I'm trapped. I'm in a tomb.
This is only like a little bit faster than actually just walking back with the phone out, but it's fun to do. Let's go outside the map. So in this next part, this is where the biggest time save happens. It doesn't look like anything, once again, actually occurs, because we just have the battery. You're supposed to not have one here, and it tasks you with going to find one. It sends you down this really long path of going through a maze, dealing with some other survivors of the plane wreckage. Then you go through an area with a ton of monsters, and you have to do a stealth sequence, and then a chase sequence, and it's just like 10 minutes of gameplay that we are just simply not gonna visit. We have to make this laser focus a little bit, start up the machine, it's gonna break, and then we're instantly gonna repair it. So while we're not doing all those maps, for the sake of the game and the plot, it's assuming that we did, which means a lot of time passes by doing so. So we're just gonna remove the broken battery, slap in one of our own, and now we need to refocus the lasers. And the only reason that I bring that up is because we still have that shadow chasing us. It is still trying to catch up to us, even though we have really outran it with all of this time passing. It's going to show up real soon. To give you some rotates. We got time for like 2 quick donations.
Alrighty, we have $5.55 from Forrest with 2 R's, who says, I choose the sick boost off the rocks and the trolley problem every time. Trolley problem every time. Fantastic job, BloodThunder, Nerd, and Enigma, and good luck with the rest of the run.
Thank you so much.
And we have $50 from Tim W., who says, I've been watching and donating since classic games done quick. Glad to see the evolution of so many games and speedruns for over so many years. Keep up the great work on the way to $1 million.
Thank you so much. So the shadow is showing up, this gooey flesh stuff, and it's actually going to redirect the portal, not to the mountain village that we need to go to find the doctor, but instead further into the other world. And this is where the game gets really, really dark in the next couple of maps. Not physically, although that does happen too, but just from a plot perspective. If you've never like really understood the plot points of any of the games, there's some really great lore explained videos out there that really go in depth, and it's pretty brutal. So I'm curious to see how dark they go for the bunker here soon. We're gonna do a quick clip out here. So this is the theater. What's supposed to happen is Tassie finds out that her unborn child also is inflicted with the same disease that's been going around, which kind of marks it for death, unfortunately. But the Empress says, I have a solution to your problem, and it's this Vitae energy. stuff, which is also what's powering the jars, the little batteries we have with us, and it's like a life source. What she doesn't say until like later on in this map is that life force is extracted from torturing people and torturing them quite a lot. So it's not something you really want to be messing with. Anyways, we're going to be running into this room to grab a little pylon that we need. So we need to get a train started so we can continue our journey through. We're going to clip through this window real fast. Now this one's a little bit devious because if we just run out into this next room, it's going to connect to the middle of the room right there, and it's going to trigger a monster known as a Wraith to spawn in, which is a very scary monster for sure. It's a kind of the upgraded ghoul, so we need to be fast enough to throw this into the next room. It's still going to have this monster spawn in, but by breaking the line of sight on the pylon from the center of the room, we can actually pick it up. You usually have to wait like 15 seconds or so. So we break out of the Wraith's grasp and we can go on with our lives. Power up the machine. And now this clip here is my least favorite in the game. It like hardly ever works. Luckily it's not too big of a time save if I don't get it here in a couple tries. We will just run down the stairs. But for whatever reason, it's quite tricky to pull off. All right, give it like 2 more. Let's see what we can do. All right. We will instead just run on down. So this is a whole section that's set up so you can start your first torture session. Once again, not quite a pleasant thing. Luckily, we don't actually have to do it. So coming up is the dreaded auto-scroller. We have a way of breaking out of it, but we can also break out of it at the start.
Let's see if this thing works.
This is more for fun. This doesn't actually save any time, but if you stand right here, you hit this like damage trigger. You get pushed out of it. You can run away. I'm free. Woo! But unfortunately, the map just ends regardless. We get thrown into it. Like I said, we can break out of this auto-scroller, which normally you just wait through a couple of minutes of waiting, and then a stealth segment, and your lantern gets broken, and it's just not stuff we want to do. We have to wait for a very specific moment on the ride. So we're going to line up using like this little thing on the floor. Unfortunately, because it's moving, it's also going to move us, so we have to keep updating. And our goal is to jump over this wall by using a crouch jump at the very apex of an elevator that's going up.
Was I wrong? Will I lose you now?
So we have this.
As I lost this? Oh God, it's
Good time for more donations.
you can't live.
Alrighty, we got $50 from DJ Rebirth, who says donating to an amazing cause during BloodThunder's gravity-defying speedrun. Also, this game's name is absolutely fantastic. Cheers to charity.
I wonder why he likes the name.
I was wondering that too. We have $25 from Lee, who says, thank you for all the help. Keep up the good work and happy amnesia.
Okay, so we're about to be at the bottom of the elevator, lining up our foot with that indicator. Now we're going to wait for 3 blue lights to pass. And that's a good time for a quick save, because you only get 1 shot at this. Technically, there's a different spot later on. You can jump out, but it's not one we want to use, so just to be a little safe. It's at just the right time. We got to crouch and jump. We use a single bind for both of those, so we can crouch jump perfectly. Don't go too far. We just want to land on the outside here. There's a lot of room, surprisingly. If I take my hands off the mouse and keyboard, when the cart moves around, you can see her like just shuffle around. And it's always scary. I always think she's going to fall off, but she's like yet to do it. It's super, super scary. Anyways, to save a little bit more time, we're going to try to get to the front of this train car by jumping over to this one.
Oh no.
To the front, just so we can get to this little platform over here a little bit sooner. There's supposed to be like a gotcha moment where like a portal shows up and it's like, oh, I can go through there. It's going to make me, it's going to get us home, but it goes speeding off. Unfortunately, that's not even a real rift. We can't take it out. It's just like a PNG over there. So we're going to grab one of these jiggly rocks and make our way once again to the end of the map. Kind of like the map earlier, we're going to bypass a lot of triggers we're supposed to hit. So there is some problems with things not loading in properly at the end. But one thing that is loaded in right now are these blue tubes of flowing energy. This is all the Vitae energy from people being harvested. Because the Empress also has the disease. She uses that to basically ward it off and keep herself alive. And she needs a ton of it because it's diminishing returns. So as we kind of see in the next map, she has a lot of people being tortured on a 24/7 cycle. You can see our own player model kind of went away there. There's a door that we need to open, but there's 2 rocks blocking the door that we need to move. So we've got to find those, open the door, slip behind it, and click on the one back there. So once we load in, we do get a chance to see one of the pods. Every time you see one of these things, there's a person inside of here being constantly tortured. And not only that, they're given an amnesia mixture to make them forget the torture, because over time it would have, once again, diminishing returns, and you'd need more and more and more people. But by giving them an amnesia mixture, I need to actually keep that with me, you make them forget all that and start the torture anew. So once again, super dark. Not the nicest people. So once again, we're not supposed to have our lantern. We're not going to use it here, but we did keep it through the last map because we didn't fall down to the part where it breaks, which is pretty nice to have. This pot lid's not, because it is pretty small and pretty thin, it is easy to lose and also very hard to stand on. So we're going to try this clip again, pull it through the wall. The one thing about props is you don't want to go too far away from the map. So if I go up too high here, I get too much height. I will get far enough away from the map that it unloads the props to save on resources, as games tend to do. But I need a lot of height for this map as well. So there's a very thin section that I'm trying to hit as I run through here. So once again, you can see all those pods is kind of thrown around the place, and I'm sure there's thousands more throughout the other world. We're going to try to get as much height as we can. This is a huge stealth segment that involves a lot of wraiths. Almost there. So I can actually go up like, right there. You see the prop deload, but I got right where I need to go. So you really don't have a lot of room to work with. We're going to hit the staircase and go into our third dream sequence. This one's a little bit more broken than the 2 before. And at this point in the game and the story, Tassie is so pregnant that she can no longer jump, which, you know, is fair. We're just going to throw this door into oblivion. But it makes doing these prop flies much harder, because a very easy way to gain height with prop flying is to just jump. And if you want to lose height, you crouch. And we want a lot of height here, so it's very, very tricky. We're going to try to get on top of this rocking horse. And we're just going to pull, using our mouse wheel, the prop towards us, and we're going to fly way off into the sky. We're looking for an invisible pocket of water that we don't have a great setup for finding. If we get close enough, we can actually hear the running water, but we just want to keep going up, trying not to fall. Okay. Found it pretty quick. So we got this like weird swimming animation, and then we're out of the dream sequence.
Yeah, if you miss that water, it's pretty hard to recover from it.
Yeah, you can't just fall all the way back down, but then you've wasted time doing the trick, and then you have to go through the normal way of that level. Coming up is the hardest and sketchiest prop fly in the game, and probably the entire Frictional Games catalog. The prop is not super great, we can't jump, and we need a lot of height. So we've actually made it to the mountain village. If we continue up this path, we would enter it, but there's a long radio message, there's flashbacks, there's scripted parts where she like falls down. It is super slow and is not worth going through, so we're going to try to skip all that. We need to run over here and grab this canteen. Once again, we can't jump, which is a bit annoying for this, but... I'm already scared of this one. So not all of these rocks have collision that we're going to be running against. Some do, some don't. The ground always will. So if you see like sand, that is 100% there. Can't jump, but we need way more height. If you're lucky enough to just get a prop that sends you flying up to the sky here, you can take a really optimal path, but with something like this, we're probably gonna have to go to the left and go around the more scenic route.
Yeah, if you see the prop or the canteen jiggling under his feet, that's the prop pushing him up. Sometimes it doesn't work all the time though. Sometimes he has to readjust it with the scroll wheel.
Yeah, anytime I kind of stall out and gaining height, I just use the scroll wheel to bring it in, and like one tick in, one tick out, or vice versa, one tick out, one tick in, and it tends to boost you up. But we've made it far enough onto the map that we can just go around to the more scenic route. If you're lucky enough to go all over these rocks, you save a little bit more time, but it's still so much faster than going through the actual village. And all this smoke is the village like being destroyed and on fire, and you can kind of see it over there to the right. We're gonna make a quick sacrifice to the giant crater gods and just get rid of this thing over here. Oh, make sure it actually goes in. Okay, you don't want to fall down there. It's not a good place to be. So the way this map ends,
stay hydrated.
I don't know. We'll figure it out. Find some Red Bull. The way this map ends is actually like on a little cutscene. To activate that cutscene, you need an NPC to come chasing after you. It's not something you just click on a door. Luckily, there's a trigger right over here, so we don't have to go through a whole part inside the village that we can hit. And if you're wondering how we're gonna get back in bounds, we can just walk right through this rock. We should have the NPC come chase after us. Yet again, another survivor from the Cassandra plane crash that you're supposed to have just dealt with a pretty lengthy cutscene in the village. But we get saved by a doctor, you know? Doctors are pretty cool. They might even be cool enough to raise some money for. So if you're like, wow, I too want to help doctors save other people, then you can donate. Now, despite having said that, he is one of the creepiest doctors I've ever seen. And I want to give a shout out to Frictional. I gave him a shout out earlier, but shout out to them for making us sit through this upcoming part every single run. It's at the very start of the map, so there's like no hope that we can actually skip it through gameplay. We can't prop fly, prop clip past it. But, you know, you may realize what happens after you're pregnant for 9 months. You do have to go through a little bit of a birthing scene. Don't worry, nothing really gets shown. There's a little bit of blood, but if you're uncomfortable with that, this is over in about 2 minutes. There are like 3 sequences we have to do here where you're supposed to push. You can hold down forward to push. It doesn't really do anything, doesn't speed it up, but after every one of those segments, you just have to look at him. He's super creepy. I mean, just look at him. But yeah, you just have to look at him, focus, and then it'll progress to the next one. So while this is going on and we're having fun with this, you got time for donations.
We got $50 from Zoe, who says, late night donation from the audience. Let's go, SGDQ, hype! Oh yeah, they still got it this late. We got $51 from Tech Kyle, who says, this one goes out to the midnight audience, runners, and GDQ crew. Thanks for keeping the party going, less than 3. Right on, we'll keep it going all night.
Got time for some more?
Okay. Now, this is, I'm going to go ahead and warn you, this is a dad joke.
Oh, boy.
But what makes it better is that it's an anonymous $1,000 donation. Anonymous says, dad joke, how many surrealists does it take to change a light bulb? 2. 1 to paint the clocks green, and another to put the giraffe in the bathtub.
It was a dad joke, but I feel like in honor of this game, we should call it a mom joke.
I agree. Thank you, Anonymous, for the $1,000. Thank you.
Incredible. Another incredible thing is the miracle of life. So here is the baby. The doctor has kind of clued in because he was part of the survivors of the plane wreck, and he knows what Tassie's decision for the trolley problem was earlier, and he was not a fan of that like many others weren't. And he realizes this is an opportunity to save himself by taking the child and running away to the Empress. But he was lucky enough to put our pants back on, so he's not all bad, I guess. He's also going to take the amulet, so we can't traverse worlds either.
I must do what you would not. If we are to be cured against our lives, what is one child?
Fucking dare!
So Tassie, being the mom that she is, goes absolute berserk, goes Hulk mode, starts ripping out of this, and she's going to go to hell and back, to the ends of the earth, to get her child. She lost one. She's not about to lose the second.
Give her back to me!
And this doctor's not good at getting away, I can tell you that. He's trying his hardest, but it's just not good enough. So we're going to chase him through the desert. And now I don't have a kid of my own. I'm not a parent. May not be for some time. But I do have a cat that I love very much, Thor. I'm wearing a shirt in his honor today.
I was going to say, you have a great cat. I love that cat.
You know, if you follow me on Twitter, you get some pictures of him. So I would do pretty much anything for him as well. I can understand Tassie's plight here. Shout outs to my own mom. Love her very much. She's done a lot for me, continues to do a lot for me. Watches like pretty much all of my runs. I don't know if she stayed up for this one. It is quite late at night, but pretty much every other GDQ run I've done, and I've done a handful of them. She's always been there, been supportive, so much love to her. So yeah, the doctor's just slowly running away, and we're chasing him through this sandstorm. We've got time for a couple more donations as we chase him through here.
All right, we got $20 from Queen Bee, who says, look, it's BloodThunder. I managed to stay awake long enough to donate. Yay! Okay, good night. We have $5 from Dad, who says, when does a duck wake up? At the quack of dawn.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, we've opened that gate. We had $10 from Call Me Cade, who says, why did the old man fall down the well? He couldn't see that well.
Probably got time for like one more.
All right. Speaking of the Tears of the Kingdom tax, that's also going on. We have $100 from Flautist, who says, paying up my Tears of the Kingdom tax now that I've gotten paid. Thank you for the entertaining week and all the cooking all the chefs have been doing. That's right. Thank you.
Yeah, one quick thing. You might have noticed as he was going through this map that he hit a few flashbacks. You can occasionally have a thing happen where, for some reason, the flashbacks just don't play and it skips.
Yeah, there's also like a little trick we did right there with the lantern pulling it out. You're not supposed to have it, so if you try to hit your lantern button, Tassie says, oh, if only I still had that lantern. And there's a flashback that plays right about in that area, which is a little bit longer. It's not too long. And by pulling out the lantern, you override that dialogue and skip it a little bit sooner. But this is the Tower of the Empress. This is where she resides. Kind of the last section of the game. It is also a very, very tall vertical level. So the doctor is going to take an elevator up. And typically you're supposed to repair the other one and chase them up that way. We're going to try to go through this wall. This is something that's much easier to do on a current patch of the game. Down patch, it's a little tricky, but we got out quickly. We're going to grab this metal grate, yank it up through the floor. And we're going to start our ascent. There's Amnesia, the Dark Descent. This is quite the opposite. We're just going to go way up here in the sky. I need to make sure I don't unload this prop or fall off. And I also don't want to hit my head on the upper level. So we're just going to keep jumping. Be careful of that. Once again, we can jump. We no longer are with child, so we're a little bit lighter. Makes this quite a bit easier. There is a backup if I happen to fall off or it unloads or if the grate got stuck on the floor. It isn't too much slower because it is such a vertical level. Fixing the elevator is not that much slower. The old route wasn't too crazy different in terms of speed.
Yeah, what makes this skip even harder is that it's the third to last map in the entire game, so nerves can get to you and you drop the prop on accident.
Yeah, if you get this far, this is really the last trick that you have to do. So if you're on PB base or something and you get all the way up here and you fall off and you lose all that time, it's pretty devastating. So this is where the Doctor and the Empress are, and you're supposed to go kind of deal with them. And then there's 3 different endings you can get. There's kind of like a 4th ending that ties into the other one. We're going to take the quickest one, which is just right up the start here. So if you remember those the 2 batteries we got from the Alchemist Lab, we used one of those earlier. We're going to use another one here. So there is a ending that takes a teleporter back to Paris. Through that gate is where the Empress resides and all of that. But we're just going to go ahead and plug in one of the batteries. Hit the teleporter. And once again, we're not supposed to have the lantern here. So some fun stuff happens when we load into the next map. You're supposed to, if you've gotten this far, to get another battery. You're supposed to have gotten your baby back from the Empress and all of that, and you're making your escape to Paris. It's so fun when you load in here. You're supposed to be looking down at your baby, but we just have a lantern.
She's gone. She's gone. Huh.
So once we break through this wall, we are done with the game, but have no fear. We do save our child in the end. We did not actually forget her. We are back in Paris. That is time. We save the baby, and all is right in the world. Shout out to Nerd Squared for joining me this early in the morning. Great to have you on. Sadly, you know, having you in person would have been better, but thank you for helping me there. Thank you, Enigma, for hosting the run, for all those great, wonderful red comments.
You are very welcome.
Thanks to everyone in the crowd for staying up. A lot of friends out there, too. Once again, shout out to Frictional Games. They're awesome. Love all of their stuff. Really looking forward to the bunker. Like I said, if you want to see us break the bunker in just a couple days, see how runs are developed and the community behind it, once I get back home, that is the big thing we have planned. So I think that's about it for me. Thank you guys so much for not only this run, but Bioshock 2 as well. Maybe we can get the bunker in the SGDQ 2024. That'd be pretty cool to come back and do it all again. But for now, that is it for me this week.
Yeah, I also want to give my own personal shout out to Eternal Life, who's the current world record holder in Cakery, because this game very quickly got optimized after the game came out, and those 2 people have been keeping this game alive since then.
Absolutely. Yeah, shout out to those guys as well.